What's going on, everybody? It's Kyle with another episode of Unlocking Your Inner Strength, episode 238. So this weekend had some cool things. Had a great night Saturday with my brothers, their families, my mom and dad, my grandparents, World War II vet. We were all hanging here doing gingerbread houses. Devin made pizza, so that was a really fun night. Got my fourth stripe on my white belt, so I was proud of that at jiu-jitsu. And let's see, last night I failed to use attention to detail. I was going, after I put the boys down, me and Devin were getting ready to chill. I wanted to put my burgers in, and instead of using the oven timer, which I normally do, I used the timer that is on the microwave, or so I thought. Now the problem with that was I used the actual microwave, but there was some cookies and brownies that Devin had made for me on a plastic serving dish. We put it up there usually to keep it away from the dogs, otherwise they'll jump up and take it. So not to cook on plastic or anything. But a couple minutes in, Devin said, "Something burning?" I said, "It's probably just the chicken that was on the pan from your food that was left still when I put the burgers in." Another couple minutes, I said, "Take a look and see if anything's smoking." She goes, "You got something in the microwave?" So, won't make that mistake again. Burnt the things to a crisp. Those cookies and brownies, and the plastic melted, which was a mess. So, eventful, fun weekend. Today, what I want to talk about is your mind, right? That's one of my specialties, one of the things I'm very passionate about. And if for no other reason, I always go back to this, and I did this a couple weeks ago, train your mind right now. You're getting to see, and not singling anybody out, but you're getting to see how mentally weak most people are. How they just accept everything. They don't question anything. They don't use critical thought. They get themselves into ruts. and believe me, that's why I'm so passionate about this. I don't want to see anybody getting themselves into a mental rut, depression, anything of that nature, because we have a lot of control over that. But if you're constantly going to the mainstream media, and you're scrolling through social media all the time, you're being bombarded with negativity, and you don't want that, okay? So I'm going to give you 3 laws of your mind, and some of these are pretty powerful, and I'll explain how you can use them. First one is probably the most simple. It's a mind map one, and I want you to use this one for self-awareness, and then also use it, kind of what I call engineer it, so you can use it to benefit yourself, besides just having the self-awareness. It's Hebb's law. What gets fired together gets wired together. So if there was a favorite song you heard at a point in time in your life when everything was going really well, so those neurons are firing, this neuron with this music, this song that you're listening to, wired, that they get fired at the same time, they get wired together. So now every time you hear that song in that example, brings up these positive, great feelings and those emotions from that time in your life, which is a really cool thing. So you can use music, movies, whatever you want to change your state very quickly. Now, if you're having an issue and you keep snapping, losing your temper, or you're not, let's say, able to figure out how to lose weight, the thing is not the thing. There's something else that has gotten wired that you're giving special meaning to through your emotions that might not be serving you. So it can work both ways. So that's Hebb's law. And with that mind map to simplify, we say the thing is not the thing. Okay, use weight loss. That's a very simple example. If you're overweight and you've dieted, that's not the thing, that you don't know what to eat or whatnot. The thing is not the thing. There's something else going on. And that's where we use Hebb's law to kind of be a detective and go in and figure that out. For you, use it for self-awareness, and also use it to put together a short playlist that makes you feel really good. It could be 1 or 2 songs. When I do my cold shower in the morning, I have a couple songs I listen to just, really listen to the lyrics and put me into a good state. So that's Hebb's law. Next one I'm going to talk about, and then we'll come to the one, not that one of these is bigger than the other, but rereading the Kabbalion for the second time. It's Hermetic philosophy, and I love studying different ways of what I call the mental verse and schools of thought, different schools of how to access the brain and access things that seem like special powers, but we all have access to these things when we're aware of them. So the law of rhythm, The law of rhythm, basically, and this is something that I find fascinating, because I was talking about the pendulum when a year or two into this field, when I just started realizing this pendulum effect. I didn't know it was in the Kabbalion. So, real simple way, before we could look at the extremes of this, is I'll use myself as an example. I never get too elated about anything. That's just how I am. I remember my dad saying to me one time, "Why don't you smile more?" But I was always so serious at the time, working on stuff. But I would never get too elated, like overly joyous. Still that way. Which means, though, the pendulum can only swing back to the amount that I put it up to here. So as far as getting down or getting knocked off course, rarely ever happens to me, because I can't get too elated, just my personality, I can't get too far in the dumps. The pendulum, it wouldn't work that way. If the pendulum comes here, it's not going to swing to here. So it's in this fine window. So I'm usually able to keep my head about me and move forward no matter what the circumstance. Now, if I was, manic, let's say I was up here, boom, I'm going to have just as big lows. Okay, that pendulum's going to swing. When you force yourself to lose a lot of body weight by doing improper things, not following the panda plan, okay, cut all your carbs, do all this cardio. Boom, the pendulum's over here. Guess what? It's going to swing back over to here. Metabolism's going to pay the price. Hunger's going to be there in ways you cannot imagine if you do it long enough, and you're going to actually rebound and gain all this weight. So this is always in effect, this law of the pendulum. When you realize this, when the pendulum's coming back, that's where you got to master your mind and rise above the tide. I have an article about this coming out in Newell Strength newsletter, but you got to be able to rise above the tide when it comes back. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just you can rise to the next plane when you realize that, and you can step above it. It's like a tide coming in. Boom. What's up, Case? So you got to think of that. This is from the Kabbalion. The master, however, carries this to a much higher degree of proficiency, and by the use of his will, he attains a degree of poise and mental firmness almost impossible of belief on the part of those who allow themselves to be swung backward and forward by the mental pendulum of moods and feelings. Don't let yourself be swung back and forth by your moods and your feelings. I always say don't let your feelings, your emotions, I should say, feelings is a little bit different. Don't let your emotions drive your thought patterns. You allow your thought patterns to drive the emotion, or you rise above it, which you can do. That's what the master does according to this, right? So you are trying to become the master of your own brain, in your own mental verse, right? The mental verse, the universe is up here. If your mind wasn't there to see it, it would not exist. So it's all up here. You got to really start realizing this stuff. The importance of this will be appreciated by any thinking person who realizes what creatures of moods, feelings, and emotion the majority of people are, and how little mastery of themselves they manifest. Okay? The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. That's the law of rhythm, the law of the pendulum, as I like to call it. And I talked about this at the beginning. Rule is the capacity for pain and pleasure, and each individual is balanced. Just know if you can feel a lot of pleasure in your life, you're also going to feel a lot of pain. Okay, and that's okay. But when the pain comes back, how do you step above it so you're not in it? That's one key thing you have to realize here. Let's see if there's anything else from the law of the pendulum I want you guys to take away from this. Everything has its pleasant and unpleasant sides. The things that one gains are always paid for by the things that one loses. Right? You might lose your 7-figure-a-year job, but have a lot more freedom with your kids, a lot more time with your kids. Right? Both of them are forms of wealth. So you got to start looking at things like this. Devin was telling me something about somebody that will remain nameless, but it's a friend of ours, but it wasn't a bad thing, but got themselves in this situation. And I said, listen, this person, she has to take responsibility. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, yeah, it's unfortunate that this happened. But everything, and this is one of the other laws, right? The law of cause and effect. Everything has a cause. You might not see it. It might not be obvious, but everything has a cause. Every effect has a cause. Every cause has an effect. So if this person didn't put themselves in this situation where I could have kind of told you what might happen on a party like that, where it might not be the best situation to put yourself into, you got to own up to that. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Nothing too bad happened, but the cause was she went to this party. She decided that was a good idea. So it's always there. All right, and the last one I want to go over, because I don't like to keep these too long, is the law of creation. So I was writing about this morning. So me and Braxton made his first movie last week. We're going to start doing that on Wednesdays, shooting some home footage. It's on my YouTube channel. I got to go in and edit the title and all that. It's about 4 minutes. But he followed the law of creation, and you can use this with anything in your life. Thought, word, and action. Those are the 3 levels. Thought, word, and action. Now, you got to remember, too, the 3 has a significance. There's a reason I have 3. But I won't go over that in this, but there are a lot of reasons, right? Three kids, mind, body, spirit, thought, word, action, the 3 levels of creation, just as an aside with the beard. But, so, Dad, I said, Brax, you want to make a movie? Okay, let's make a movie. So we start thinking about it. He starts saying, what do we, I said, all right, let's go sit down, let's write this movie out. So we wrote down 3 scenes, right? So we took the thought, and this happened pretty quickly, put it into words. Okay, this is what's going to happen in this scene. We talked it through, so thought, word. In action, I took out my phone. We filmed 3 or 4 scenes, whatever it was. Took that. We sat down on iMovie on the computer. He helped me put the movie together. It was a very quick process in that regard, but anything in your life first begins as a thought. Now, most people, that's where their great ideas stay. They don't progress beyond that to the word. The word is visualization. It's talking about it. It's writing about it, which is huge. Just writing down your goals every day. That's word. That's the middle level, no matter which end you enter this from. So what do you mean by that? So sometimes you don't have the belief that you can do something. This is where you would reverse this. You start taking action that might, act as if, right? You've heard that before. Act successful before you make it. This is just we're using it in reverse. You take the action first, start going over the words, the self-belief, the affirmations, write them down, say them out loud. And then the thought will eventually come where you can, what am I going to take this? I actually believe this. What's going to happen? So you can use this both ways. But those are your 3 laws. There's obviously many more laws that are mine. The 3 I want to go over today, just with everything going on. People need to really start working on their mental game. Because again, I said this a couple weeks ago, no matter what they're doing in the media and all this hullabaloo and this silliness and this fear-mongering, they can't affect you up here unless you allow it. They can't get into your brain unless you give them permission to. Right? When you can protect this and use the law of the pendulum and rise above the negativity and the fear, it can't affect you. So there's a lot of power within this stuff. So that's it for episode 238. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes, Unlocking Your Inner Strength, and I will be back next week with another episode. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.